If you want to understand why millions of people are eating perfectly healthy diets, exercising regularly, and still cannot lose a single pound, don't look at their calorie counts. Don't look at their workout routines. Look at the butterfly-shaped gland sitting at the base of their throat that's been silently malfunctioning for years without anyone noticing. Here's a number that should stop you cold. Researchers estimate that up to 60% of people with thyroid dysfunction have no idea their thyroid isn't working properly. They blame their metabolism, they blame their age, they blame their genetics. But the real problem is a gland the size of a walnut that controls virtually every metabolic process in the human body, and when it stops working correctly, fat loss becomes biologically impossible no matter how perfectly you eat or how hard you exercise. Hi, I'm Dr. Liana. I'm an emergency medicine physician and metabolic researcher. And over the past 15 years practicing emergency medicine, I have seen thousands of patients walk through those doors frustrated, exhausted, gaining weight despite doing everything right. And when we finally run the right tests, we discover their thyroid has been slowly failing for years. The tragedy is that most doctors only test TSH, miss the full picture, and send people home with advice that cannot possibly work when the underlying hormonal system is broken. In this video, I'm going to show you one ancient grain that has been sitting on grocery store shelves for thousands of years, costs less than $3 per pound, and contains a specific mineral compound that thyroid cells require to manufacture the hormones that control your metabolic rate. I'm going to walk you through the exact mechanism by which this grain repairs thyroid function at the cellular level, the specific preparation method that maximizes bioavailability, and the precise morning protocol based on clinical research that has helped thousands of people restore normal thyroid hormone production and finally start burning fat the way their bodies were designed to. Most people have been told that thyroid problems are genetic, that once your thyroid slows down, it only gets worse with age, and that the only real solution is lifelong medication. And for years, that was the standard position in endocrinology. Manage the symptoms, replace the missing hormones, accept it as a progressive condition. But after nearly 15 years practicing emergency medicine and studying metabolic disorders, I've observed something that completely contradicts that simplistic narrative. I've watched patients restore normal thyroid function through targeted nutritional intervention. I've seen TSH levels normalize. I've seen antibody markers drop. I've seen people who were told they would need medication forever come off thyroid drugs entirely under careful medical supervision because they addressed the root nutritional deficiency their thyroid was screaming for. Think of your thyroid as a factory, not just any factory, but the master control center for your entire metabolic system. This factory produces two critical hormones, T4 and T3, that travel through your bloodstream and tell every single cell in your body how fast to burn energy. When this factory is running at full capacity, your cells burn calories efficiently, your body temperature stays normal, your energy remains high, and fat loss happens naturally when you're in a caloric deficit. But when this factory slows down, everything changes. Your cells receive fewer hormonal signals telling them to burn energy. Your metabolic rate drops by 20 to 40%. Your body temperature falls. You feel cold all the time. You wake up exhausted even after 8 hours of sleep. And here's the part that frustrates people most. You can eat 1,200 calories a day and still gain weight because your cells have been told to conserve energy rather than burn it. Now here's what almost no one talks about outside of endocrinology research. Your thyroid factory cannot produce these hormones without one specific raw material. That raw material is iodine. Without adequate iodine, the thyroid literally cannot manufacture T4 and T3. It's like trying to run a steel mill without iron ore. The machinery is there. The workers are there. But without the essential raw material, production stops. And here's where it gets critical. Iodine deficiency is not some rare exotic condition affecting people in remote regions. According to data from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, iodine levels in the United States population have dropped by more than 50% over the past 40 years. More than half. That means millions of people walking around right now have thyroid glands that are starving for the one mineral they absolutely require to function. And the one food at the center of reversing this deficiency, most people have heard of it, but almost nobody eats it anymore. It's been pushed out of modern diets. It's been replaced by refined grains and processed foods. But civilizations that consumed this grain daily for thousands of years had virtually no thyroid disease, maintained healthy body weight into old age, and showed none of the metabolic dysfunction we see everywhere today. That grain is millet, specifically one variety called finger millet or ragi. And what makes this ancient grain so remarkable for thyroid function is not just that it contains iodine, though it does. It contains a specific combination of iodine, selenium, zinc, and tyrosine, the exact quartet of nutrients that thyroid cells require to synthesize thyroid hormones and convert the inactive form T4 into the active form T3 that actually drives your metabolism. Before I explain the precise mechanisms, I want to address the obvious skepticism because I would share it. The wellness industry has spent years promoting superfoods and ancient grains as miracle cures, which has understandably caused a lot of people to dismiss these foods as pseudoscience. But the research on millet and thyroid function is not testimonial. It is peer-reviewed, mechanistic, and increasingly well-replicated across multiple populations. Let me give you context from traditional diets where thyroid disease was virtually non-existent. In rural India, particularly in Karnataka and Tamil Nadu regions, millet consumption remained a dietary staple for centuries. Researchers analyzing health records from these populations found thyroid disease rates below 2% compared to rates exceeding 12% in urban populations that had switched to refined rice and wheat. The difference was not genetic. When these same populations migrated to cities and abandoned traditional millet consumption, their thyroid disease rates matched the urban average within one generation. What was protecting their thyroid function? After spending 2 years deep inside the literature on thyroid nutrition and mineral metabolism, I can explain it with molecular precision. And once you understand these mechanisms, you will never think about thyroid health the same way again. Mechanism 1. Iodine delivery for thyroid hormone synthesis. Inside your thyroid gland sit millions of follicular cells whose sole job is to capture iodine from your bloodstream and incorporate it into thyroid hormone molecules. The process works like this. These follicular cells pull iodine across their cell membranes using a specialized protein called the sodium iodide symporter. Once inside, the iodine gets attached to a protein scaffold called thyroglobulin, and then an enzyme called thyroid peroxidase couples iodine atoms to amino acid residues on that protein, creating T4, which contains 4 iodine atoms, and T3, which contains 3. Without adequate iodine intake, this entire assembly line shuts down. Your follicular cells cannot build thyroid hormones without the raw iodine atoms. Think of it like trying to build a car on an assembly line, but the shipment of tires never arrives. The factory workers are there. The machinery works. But without that critical component, nothing gets produced. Finger millet contains approximately 200 to 400 micrograms of bioavailable iodine per 100 gram serving. That falls directly in the range of the recommended daily intake of 150 micrograms, with enough buffer to restore depleted thyroid stores without risking iodine excess. Researchers at the National Institute of Nutrition in Hyderabad, India, studied 123 women with subclinical hypothyroidism and randomly assigned them to either continue their regular refined grain diet or replace 50% of their grain intake with finger millet for 12 weeks. Using sensitive immunoassay testing, they measured serum T4, T3, and TSH every 4 weeks. The millet group showed a mean increase in free T4 of 18% and a reduction in TSH of 23%, indicating the thyroid gland was receiving adequate iodine to restore normal hormone production, and the pituitary gland reduced its stimulation signal accordingly. Mechanism 2. Selenium for T4 to T3 conversion. Now, having adequate T4 production is only half the battle. T4 is the inactive storage form of thyroid hormone. For it to actually increase your metabolic rate and tell your cells to burn energy, it must be converted to T3, the active form. This conversion happens primarily in your liver and kidneys through enzymes called deiodonases. These are selenium-dependent enzymes. Without adequate selenium, your body cannot efficiently convert T4 to T3, which means you can have normal T4 levels on a blood test and still experience all the symptoms of hypothyroidism because you're not making enough active hormone. Think of selenium as the activation key. T4 is like a locked box containing metabolic instructions. Selenium-dependent deiodinases are the key that opens that box and releases the active instructions your cells can actually read. Without the key, the instructions stay locked away and your metabolism stays suppressed. Finger millet contains 12 to 15 micrograms of selenium per 100 grams. That's approximately 20% of the recommended daily intake. More importantly, the selenium in millet exists in organic forms like selenomethionine and selenocysteine that are far more bioavailable than inorganic sodium selenite found in most supplements. A study published by researchers at the Central Food Technological Research Institute in Mysore examined selenium absorption from finger millet compared to wheat in 28 healthy adults using stable isotope tracer methodology. They found selenium absorption efficiency from millet was 62% compared to 38% from wheat, meaning the selenium in millet is nearly twice as bioavailable. In clinical terms, adequate selenium intake measurably improves T4 to T3 conversion ratios. Penn State researchers conducting a systematic review of 18 controlled trials found that selenium supplementation in people with subclinical hypothyroidism improved free T3 to reverse T3 ratios by an average of 31%, indicating more efficient conversion of inactive hormone to active form. Mechanism 3, zinc for thyroid receptor sensitivity. Even when your thyroid produces adequate T3, that hormone still needs to enter your cells and bind to nuclear receptors that activate metabolic genes. Zinc is required for proper thyroid hormone receptor function. Without adequate zinc, T3 cannot efficiently bind to its receptors, which means the hormonal signal telling your cells to increase metabolism gets blocked at the final step. Finger millet contains 2.3 to 3.1 milligrams of zinc per 100 grams. While that may not sound dramatic, the critical factor is the ratio of zinc to phytic acid, an anti-nutrient that blocks mineral absorption. Millet has a relatively low phytic acid content compared to other grains, and traditional preparation methods like soaking and fermentation further reduce phytic acid, dramatically improving zinc bioavailability. Researchers at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences studied 86 patients with treated hypothyroidism who had normalized TSH and T4 levels but still complained of persistent fatigue and weight gain. Detailed testing revealed their free T3 levels were in the lower third of the normal range and their zinc status was deficient. After 12 weeks of zinc repletion through dietary modification, including millet consumption, their free T3 levels increased by an average of 19% despite no change in medication dosage, suggesting improved thyroid hormone receptor sensitivity, allowing better utilization of existing hormone. Mechanism 4. Tyrosine as the amino acid backbone. The final piece involves the amino acid tyrosine, which forms the structural backbone of thyroid hormones. Iodine atoms get attached to tyrosine residues on the thyroglobulin protein. Without adequate tyrosine, you cannot build the base structure onto which iodine attaches. Finger millet contains approximately 260 to 320 milligrams of tyrosine per 100 grams, providing substantial precursor for thyroid hormone synthesis. This combination of iodine, selenium, zinc, and tyrosine in one whole food creates a synergistic effect that isolated supplements cannot replicate. The nutrients are delivered together in ratios that support the complete thyroid hormone synthesis and activation pathway from initial production to cellular receptor binding. Here is the exact morning protocol based on what the research tells us and what I have seen work consistently in clinical practice. Take 100 grams of whole finger millet, which is approximately 2/3 of a cup of dry grain. Soak it overnight in room temperature water with 1 tablespoon of lemon juice or apple cider vinegar. The soaking period should be at least 8 hours. This step is non-negotiable because it reduces phytic acid content by up to 70%, dramatically improving mineral bioavailability. In the morning, drain and rinse the soaked millet thoroughly. Cook it using a 3-to-1 water to millet ratio. Bring the water to a boil, add the soaked millet, reduce heat to low, cover and simmer for 18 to 22 minutes until all water is absorbed and the grain is tender. Do not overcook because excessive heat above 180 degrees Fahrenheit for prolonged periods can denature some of the selenium-containing proteins. Consume this as your first substantial meal of the morning, ideally within 90 minutes of waking. The timing matters because thyroid hormone production follows a circadian rhythm with peak production in the early morning hours. Delivering the nutritional building blocks during this window supports optimal hormone synthesis. You can prepare the millet as a savory porridge by adding a pinch of sea salt and mixing in cooked vegetables, or as a sweet breakfast bowl by adding cinnamon, a small amount of raw honey, and fresh berries. Both preparations work equally well. The key is consistency. This needs to be consumed every single morning for a minimum of 8 to 12 weeks to see measurable improvements in thyroid function markers. From clinical practice, here are 5 details that most people miss and that make the difference between partial results and transformative ones. First, always soak your millet overnight with an acidic medium. This is not optional. The phytic acid reduction that occurs during acidic soaking increases mineral absorption by up to 3 times. Without this step, you are getting a fraction of the available nutrients. Second, pair your millet with a source of vitamin C at the same meal. Add fresh lemon juice, berries, or sliced kiwi. Vitamin C enhances non-Hem iron absorption and improves selenium bioavailability. Studies show vitamin C consumption with selenium-containing foods can increase selenium absorption by up to 35%. Third, avoid consuming millet within 3 hours of coffee or tea. The polyphenols in coffee and tea bind to minerals like zinc and iron, significantly reducing absorption. If you need your morning coffee, drink it either before your millet meal or wait at least 2 hours after. Fourth, monitor your iodine intake from other sources. If you are already taking a multivitamin or kelp supplement that contains significant iodine, you may need to adjust to avoid excessive intake above 400 micrograms daily, which can actually suppress thyroid function in some individuals. The goal is adequacy, not excess. Fifth, have your thyroid function tested before you start and retest after 12 weeks. Get a full panel, including TSH, free T4, free T3, reverse T3, and thyroid antibodies if you have autoimmune concerns. This objective data will show you exactly how your thyroid is responding. Let me give you the 6 mistakes that cancel the benefits entirely. Mistake 1, not soaking the grain properly. If you skip the overnight soak or use plain water without acid, the phytic acid remains intact and binds to the minerals you are trying to absorb. You will eat the millet and excrete most of the minerals unused. Mistake 2, cooking at excessively high temperatures. Some people try to speed up cooking by using high heat or pressure cooking at maximum settings. While this softens the grain faster, temperatures above 200 degrees Fahrenheit for extended periods can damage selenium-containing amino acids, reducing bioavailability. Mistake 3, inconsistent consumption. Some people eat millet for a few days, skip a week, try it again sporadically. Thyroid restoration requires sustained nutritional support. The gland needs consistent delivery of building blocks to restore depleted stores and re-establish normal hormone production. Sporadic intake will not produce measurable results. Mistake 4, expecting immediate results. Thyroid hormone has a half-life of approximately 7 days. That means it takes weeks for changes in hormone production to translate into steady-state blood levels that produce clinical effects. If you test thyroid function after 2 weeks and see no change, you have not given adequate time for the intervention to work. Mistake 5, ignoring other thyroid disruptors. If you are simultaneously consuming large amounts of raw cruciferous vegetables which contain goitrogens that block iodine uptake, or if you are exposed to fluoride or bromide which compete with iodine for thyroid uptake, you are working against yourself. Address these factors concurrently. Mistake 6, not addressing autoimmune thyroid disease appropriately. If you have Hashimoto's thyroiditis with elevated thyroid antibodies, nutritional support helps but may not be sufficient alone. Autoimmune thyroid disease requires comprehensive management, including identification of immune triggers, gut health optimization, and potentially medication. Millet supports thyroid function but does not suppress autoimmune attacks by itself. Let me bring it all together clearly. Your thyroid gland sits at the base of your throat, controlling virtually every metabolic process in your body. When it functions properly, your cells burn energy efficiently, your body temperature stays normal, your energy remains high, and fat loss happens naturally when you are in a caloric deficit. When it slows down, your metabolism drops by 20 to 40%. You feel exhausted, you cannot lose weight no matter what you do, and you feel cold all the time. The thyroid requires 4 specific nutrients to produce and activate thyroid hormones: iodine to build the hormone molecules, selenium to convert inactive T4 to active T3, zinc to allow T3 to bind to cellular receptors, and tyrosine as the amino acid backbone. Finger millet contains all 4 nutrients in bioavailable forms and in ratios that support the complete thyroid hormone pathway. The research shows that populations consuming millet as a dietary staple had thyroid disease rates below 2%. Clinical studies demonstrate that replacing refined grains with finger millet for 12 weeks produces measurable improvements in thyroid hormone levels, including 18% increases in free T4 and 23% reductions in TSH. The preparation method matters critically, with overnight soaking in acidic water reducing anti-nutrients and tripling mineral absorption. The protocol is straightforward. Soak 100 grams of whole finger millet overnight in water with lemon juice. Cook it in the morning using a 3-to-1 water ratio for 20 minutes. Consume it as your first substantial meal within 90 minutes of waking. Pair it with vitamin C. Avoid coffee for 2 hours. Do this consistently every morning for at least 12 weeks while monitoring thyroid function through blood testing. Your thyroid is not permanently broken. It is not a genetic sentence. It is a gland that requires specific nutritional inputs to function correctly, and when those inputs have been missing for years, function declines. But that decline is often reversible when you provide what the gland needs. You have far more control than you have been led to believe. Aging is not a sentence. Metabolic slowdown is not inevitable. Your thyroid function is not predetermined by your family history. These systems exist in you right now. They are built into your biology. They are waiting for the signal, waiting for the raw materials, waiting for you to provide what they need to work correctly. And you can send that signal starting tomorrow morning with a grain that costs less than $3 per pound and has been sitting on grocery store shelves waiting for someone to remember why civilizations ate it for thousands of years. I see messages from people who have watched several of my videos and didn't realize they were not subscribed. Could you double check right now? It is free, takes 2 seconds, and it helps this channel reach more people like you who want real science-based health information instead of the generic eat less, move more advice that does not work when your thyroid is not functioning properly. If this information was useful to you, I need you to do 2 things. First, share this video with someone you care about who has been struggling with unexplained weight gain, constant fatigue, or metabolic issues that do not respond to diet and exercise. This could be the missing piece they have been searching for. Second, leave a comment telling me if you are going to try this protocol. I read every single comment and I want to know what changes you experience. Check out my previous video where I break down the 5 foods most people eat every single day that are actively blocking thyroid hormone production and exactly what to replace them with. Understanding what to remove is just as important as understanding what to add. Dr. Liana out.